Right, joining me now is the Australian's political editor from Canberra, Dennis Shanahan. Dennis, we've got to start with all of these Chinese revelations that come after months and months of debate at political level and community level, to be fair, and business level about China and the trade-off between our security relationship and our economic relationships, and whether it's an either-or conundrum. What did you make of last night's revelations? I said at the start of the show, am I disturbed? Yes. Am I surprised? No.
Well, that's a pretty fair summary, I think, Peter. It's nothing to be surprised about. These things have been going on for some time. We know that the aggression in China's interference has been growing. There have been warnings for some time that our political system has been open to hacking and influence. We know there has been financial influence. The attempts to buy influence from MPs and so forth through donations and so on. This has been building for quite some time, and it's been building not just in Australia but elsewhere. What, of course, is shocking is the idea that somehow somebody was actually going to become a Manchurian candidate elected to our parliament to operate in exactly the way they're not supposed to operate, and that is against the national interest. Now, the separate issue, and we do have to keep the two issues separate, is the claim for asylum by the man claiming to have blown the whistle on China. We have to try and keep these issues separate for his sake and for the sake of the relationship with China. We have to stand up. If this man deserves asylum, he should be given it, just as the Howard government did to a former consul employee, a Chinese consul employee. We have to assess it on their individual grounds and make that decision clear. It's also an underlying point here that both Tony Abbott as Prime Minister and Malcolm Turnbull as Prime Minister, in a short space of time, both declared that they would not enact the extradition treaty, which was given in principle under the Howard government with China. If either of those leaders had given in to the suggestions that they ratify this extradition treaty, we would be seeing Australian and Chinese nationals being whipped off to China and nothing we could do about it. So I think, just as a little coda here, we should be grateful that that extradition treaty was not enacted either by Tony Abbott or Malcolm Turnbull.
Let me underscore that remark you just made, because the decision not to proceed with the extradition treaty in the Abbott government was made by Tony Abbott. The decision not to proceed with the extradition treaty in the Turnbull government was pushed by Malcolm Turnbull and Julie Bishop, but the decision not to proceed was a decision of the party room that pretty much rolled the leadership. So that's the key difference between those two administrations. I want to say something, though, here about Gladys Liu. So the talk of this Manchurian candidate related to her seat of Chisholm. The man speaks to ASIO about the Chinese government approach, allegedly. He then turns up dead. We don't know the circumstances of his death. There's a coronial inquest, and ASIO obviously have confirmed today they were aware of the approach. Gladys Liu runs for that seat. There are continuing concerns about a $1 million sum she says she raised for her campaign, and her affiliation with a range of organisations, some 500 Chinese organisations. Now, it was many months ago, Dennis, that she promised through the Victorian Liberal Party to do an audit of these organisations and to get up into the Parliament and clarify the extent of those relationships and the various organisations and potentially name them. Where's that up to?
Well, we haven't really seen, certainly not publicly nor to the Parliament, a fully audited account of where the money came from and who was responsible for raising it. I think that sadly, any candidate of Chinese descent in Australia now is going to have extra. Be careful about where their money is coming from. These allegations can be made by both sides. And by the way, of course, I'm not just suggesting that this is Liu's problem, because her opposition was also of Chinese descent and had similar allegations being made about fundraising and shadowy organisations. I think that the time has come for the Liberal Party and the Labor Party to actually start to take some action against all of these groups who are clearly being used as, some are being used as cover to provide donations and peddle influence. We've already seen this in the Labor Party in New South Wales, and the Victorian Liberal Party, I think, is under even greater obligations now to try and end this speculation about Gladys Liu's support, financial support, during the last election.
Yeah, we'll see if we get a statement this side of Christmas. I think a lot of people are expecting it, and the events of the last 24 hours only heighten that expectation. Dennis Shanahan, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Peter.